What's up, guys? This is Enrico from Hideous Divinity, and you're watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 157, and today's guest we're talking to Enrico Schettino. He is the guitarist for the band Hideous Divinity, a death metal band based out of Italy. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal and pretty much the history of the band, and going through the discography, of course. So, without further ado, let's go talk to Enrico. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Enrico Schettino from Hideous Divinity and Patristic. So how are you doing today, man?
Doing fine, thank you. Congrats, because the first one so far that ever gets my surname right. So I don't know how you did it, but kudos.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah, I had to look it up and practice it beforehand.
Okay, appreciate the honesty. Thank you, nevertheless.
Awesome. So kind of the format is I want to talk about your musical history and also do a rundown of your discography. But before we go into that, take me back to young Enrico. So kind of growing up in Italy, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing guitar?
Oh boy. Well, my education started a long time ago. It was, thanks to my father and his Pink Floyd records. Then I found out about Queen. Then I found out about Led Zeppelin. Me and my father going together to this Pink Floyd concert, to the Division Bell Tour 1994. Things that are definitely something that made me. When it comes to metal, I guess must have been 15 or 16, and a friend of mine forgot this tape of Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera at home. So the first song that I ever heard was actually fucking Hostile, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I listened to a lot of music before, but I couldn't believe that music was actually made by human beings. I thought it was a joke. And then, of course, once I started, I could not go back. I remember that summertime, almost 30 years ago, with Vulgar Display of Power, KOCD by Sepultura. Those were the bands. I mean, we're talking about the 90s, which was a very interesting time for heavy music. Probably bands. So we're talking about the rise of artists like Marilyn Manson. So it was a very controversial. The grunge was not over yet, at least not in Italy, not in Europe. So it was very controversial music time. So, but I remember I just, you meet the right people at high school, you start to listen to it. And then shortly after that, then death metal came along. I remember listening to Amon Feasting the Beast by D-side for the first time, and I thought, okay, this is even better. I don't want to stop. I just want more and more and more. You're like a sponge when you start. So that was, but it took me some time to believe that I had that I could play this music. I was regarding it as something, it took me some time to gain the confidence to try that, and of course, once I started, I remember my friends back then, they want to get more into stuff like Tool, Days of the New, Soundgarden. They were getting sick and tired. Well, I was like, no. I want to continue to do this. This is just, it's getting better. Because if you think about it, when I actually founded Hour of Penance, that was 1998. That was the beginning of a golden era of some sort of a renaissance for death metal. So many amazing records came out between 1998 and 2001. So it was really an inspiration time for me. 45 years later, still here.
Awesome. And so, of course, I think you were before Hideous Divinity, you were in Hour of Penance. Was there any bands you were in before you started up Hour of Penance, or was Hour of Penance your first band?
No, yeah, I could say that. I mean, the first time I went to a studio was to record Promo 2000 by Hour of Penance, But before that, it was just random bands who were playing cover songs of something good enough to play at school and to be the cool metal band, the school's metal act. That was how it was. But like I said, I was not content with that. I just wanted more. I thought this is gonna be tough, but I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's very, very hard once you find what you think it's your purpose in life, whether you're doing that good enough or not. It's not up to me to say that, but I felt like I was in the right place. And I tried several times to drop this music. I moved a couple of times. I went living abroad, but this music was always chasing me. And like I said, 25 years later, still here.
Right. So, how did you get to know the guys in Hour of Penance? Because I know Hour of Penance formed in 1999.
Yep. Well, it was thanks to my brother. It was in what was that? It was like ninth grade, and he told me there's a guy in my class that actually plays the music that you listen to, and he's a drummer. I'm like, okay, so 14-year-old, and he listens to he plays the drum, and he says that he plays Slayer. I'm like, yeah, sure, right. Like, but my brother said he really looks into that. And then I invited him along and started playing. I'm like, I have to. I was blown away by this guy. So I said, I have to do something with it. Back in the day, in a place like Rome, uh, despite being a big city, it was really difficult to find the right people to play extreme metal because it was very simple back then. They were not drummers. There were no drummers that could play fast, that could play blast beats. For a band back in the day, if you would lose a drummer, if the drummer would simply stop playing music, the band was doomed. So to find a new guy, actually, for me, I was never part of that scene. I was never part of the metal crew, but actually, I hit the jackpot that many other bands couldn't, which was I found a new guy, like fresh meat, and he was an amazing drummer. So then I thought, okay, with this guy, I may be able to start my death metal band. That was how Our Penance was born. It was right now I cherish that time as a time where everything was just great. We would play and we would cover Cannibal Corpse or Dimmu Borgir back then. Everything was cool. Everything was fine. There was I call it the age of innocence. We weren't asking too many things. There was no such thing as this is not true, this is less true. We just loved it all, and we were doing that. So then, of course, the band became something more serious. Then I moved to Norway in 2006. Then I traveled back. I joined for a brief time, Hour of Penance. Then I was actually kicked out. So that was not a pleasant time. But without that, I would not created Hideous Divinity. So in one way, I'm grateful for how things went.
Yeah, so I believe the first thing we'll have to talk about is the promo 2000 from Hour of Penance. And I was listening to it. It's just really just straight to the point and fucking heavy. And was that like something to like send out to labels to get signed?
Yes, we did. It was such a cool demo because the whole thing was recorded like in one and a half day. It was me and the drummer at that time playing live, and everything was recorded later. It was like I said, we were entering this sort of a temple of extreme metal music in Italy. There was the Otter Sound Studios belonging to Giuseppe Orlando, that at the time was the drummer of Novembre, one of the two brothers that founded Novembre. So for us, everything was like, my goodness, we are part of this. This is amazing. Of course, we sent it out, and it was still the tape trading time. I remember we even had the old Italian currency before the euro, so I remember just a lot of this CD demos that went. We were asking the equivalent of $5 at the time, and I remember I shipped so many of those. Plus, it was the beginning of internet, so to say. So it was actually easier to get in touch with people, to get in touch with fanzines and everything. And that demo was also it helped us get our first gig outside of Italy, which was a festival in Gothenburg in Sweden. We were invited to play there in 2002. That was a fantastic experience. I mean, the opening band of that festival was actually Spawn of Possession, just before they became Spawn of Possession. And we played fourth, and they were the opening act. I remember it as one of the times in my life when I was really afraid. Like, what the hell are we going to do after these guys? It's going to be a massacre. No one can be as good as these guys. And we're going to play there's going to be another band and then us. I was scared because they were already like machines. That was a fantastic. I mean, Visceral Bleeding was there, another amazing band. Deep Red from Finland. The headliners were Iniquity. It was a fantastic experience. Something that made us understand what was the level of bands, of underground bands outside of Italy. Was wow. It was tough.
Yeah. And then, of course, you played around. And then I think the first label that Hour of Penance was on was Extreme Music, which I believe was a label from Spain. So how did they find Hour of Penance?
I was actually in touch with a guy, with Dave Rotten, because I lived in Spain for some time, and then I found out about Repulse Records, which was the label before Extreme Music, kind of a legendary Spanish underground label. And he had a store, a tiny metal store in the center of Madrid. So I visited that place, and also thanks to Spanish language. We kept in touch, and he really liked the band. He released the first two albums. It was cool. I mean, Dave Rotten is a bit of a character, but at the time he was really. I mean, the thing is, to make a record, unlike today, I don't want to sound like an old guy, talking about how things were 20-something years ago. But it was really an achievement to make a record. Like, it was something that you would take, years and years just to get to that point. So, yeah. And then the second album, Pageantry for Martyrs, I feel so bad when I think about that album that came out 2 years later. First album for Extreme Music was Disturbance, 2003. Yeah. Terrible sound, because that was the first embryo of what would later become the famous 16 cellar studios of Stefano Morabito. It was actually my cellar. I had number 16 on the door. That's how we came up with the name. But it was actually my cellar. The gear, the equipment was so crappy. So it was, because we basically had nothing. We couldn't afford it. So in order to make it sound like something decent, we spent literally weeks and weeks. And I remember how cold it was. Of course, it was a cellar with no heating. But then Stefan, of course, went to a bigger place that he certainly deserved. I mean, he really had to get out of my cellar. I feel a bit bad about the album that came afterwards, because we had much better gear, but we made very, very questionable sound choices. And that album could have been so much better. I mean, it wasn't. So.
Yeah.
And after that, Hour of Penance became something serious. I mean, they did their best things after I left. There is no problem for me acknowledging that. It's the truth, because what came later with the Vile Conception was the best album for them, and also the best recording coming from 16 Cellar Studios. I think it's the album that actually created that Italian death metal sound.
Yeah.
It was them,
Yeah, and I've listened to Disturbance, the first album, and hard to believe that this year does mark 20 years since it first was released. So usually,
Yeah,
like you have
creepy.
like a different perspective about it now as opposed to when you first put it out.
It sounds full of enthusiasm and mistakes. To me, Disturbance is not even an album. I think it's just a longer demo. But if I think about, I spent some time listening to it. I think 1 year ago, and some things were really uh, were really important to me. Meaning, what came out was showing me the way that I somehow, at least in my mind, I hope also outside of my mind, that I kind of perfected. So um, it was the beginning of a journey to me. Some things I listened to that and I'm like, this was actually a good idea. It was so poorly made, so poorly recorded and arranged, but the idea behind it was, like I said, it was still the time of enthusiasm. Everything was cool. Everything was, uh, you know. I remember the albums that came out during that year, 2002. I remember a Blasphemy from Incantation, which is a highly underrated album, and I remember
Yeah.
listening to it day and night, day and night. King of All Kings. I mean, come on. King of All Kings was one of the most important. Hate Eternal in general was one of the. We had Nile and Hate Eternal, but there was something about Hate Eternal that was just, you know, it was just them, just Eric Rutan in his immense mastery of everything that was doing. And I mean, King of All Kings is not exactly an easy album to listen to. Also, the sound is Mana Studios, but not the Mana Studios of today. It was something that he was also building. But everything was cool, and everything was motivating us. We just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like with the debut, it's almost kind of like a learning curve, or sort of like the because you can only like progress from there.
Yeah, exactly. We were just aiming at them being the best, and we just wanted to sound like them. When I started, when we recorded Promo 2000 by Hour of Penance, I just wanted to sound like Nile. That's why later on, your taste changes, and it's not only that, but also the fact that 10, 15 years after Black Seeds of Vengeance came out, the Nile clones were basically everywhere. Everyone was playing fast. Everyone was doing double kick and crazy blast beats. And so I started thinking, what's the point now? There are so many people doing this actually much better than us. There is no, what's the point of trying to compete, copying that people, copying bands like Nile like I said, I didn't see the point. That's why I would say that starting with the second album of Hideous Divinity, we started having our own style. There was nothing. There was less to demonstrate and more search for our own personality.
Yeah. And then your last album with Hour of Penance, Pagantry for Martyrs, I thought that was like a step up from Disturbance. So
Yeah.
what was that like? Did you want to really just like hone in your craft and try to like take what you learned from Disturbance to Pagantry for Martyrs?
Yeah, of course. We wanted it. We want everything that we couldn't achieve in Disturbance to be perfect. The influence of bands like Eternal was even higher than in the same at the same time between 2003 and 2005. We got in touch with so many bands in Europe. We understood, for example, how important was the influence of a band like Suffocation on death metal bands from Germany, from Netherlands, because at that time, for us, the only opportunity to play outside of Italy was just pointing north, northern Europe. And when you play at a festival, I'm talking about the pre-fast internet era. At least I didn't have it until 2004 or something. But back then, you would be invited to a festival. You will see these bands. Most of them you never heard of them before, and you're like, "What the hell? This is amazing!" Like there were bands that, of course, disappeared throughout the years because there are people that just have better life perspective, so they just quit. But I remember, for example, back then there was this band called Sinner Split, and I thought they were absolutely amazing. At the time, they had a young guitar player with a very unique guitar style. His name was Lille Gruber, and one day when we played at this festival, he actually gave me, oh, I heard you guys are with Extreme Music, the label. Well, here's the label of my band. We're called Defeated Sanity. Just give it to Dave if he's interested. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I listened to the demo tape and I was like, what the hell is this? This is just amazing. At the time, I felt so bad because Dave wasn't interested, but I was really pushing him like, these guys are going to be huge. It's perfect. It was something like the heaviest version of Gorguts. At the time, Lille's father was still alive and he was the guitar player of the band, which is a fantastic story. So I think we got all these influences that ended up on Pageantry for Martyrs that sounds perhaps a bit more towards the brutal side, but brutal meaning those Northern European bands that were so heavily influenced by Suffocation in a era that was, luckily for us back then, it was pre how you call it, that the music that I hate, that sort of it was before the slam, before the brutal slam kind of a sound, which to be honest has never been my thing.
Yeah. And then I also I love this because one thing I love is the last song on the album, Ego Manish. And I think it was interesting, like there's like a hidden track at the end of it. What made you guys decide to put like a hidden track on there?
Oh yeah. We were like I said, I will never do that again. Today it was some sort of a, I don't know, like a ghost track trying to be funny thing with some like a, what was that? Some sort of a. We were, I think, mocking like the true metalheads with some, with their attitude and stuff. It was a really clumsy attempt to make it sound like something funny. Taking some intro from, I think it was Kill Bill. Like I said, I didn't have an idea of what would make sense in terms of if we had to be a serious band and a non-serious band. It was a bit, we just wanted to keep our foot in many shoes at the same time. So some things are a bit cringy today, but yeah. The ghost track, I totally removed that part.
Yeah. And then, of course, how hard was it to leave Hour of Penance? Because I know you left in 2006.
I was not doing so well with the rest of the band members at the time. Plus, I was very excited because I was going to live in Norway, and I don't know. It was not horrible. What wasn't so bad was when I came back from Norway and I was actually asked to rejoin. We played a concert. The sound sucked. I basically got all the blame, and I got kicked out again. But I don't know. It was not very pleasant. I was really into. I tried for some time to create a band in Norway, but the only thing that I did was the demo of the Hideous Divinity with session musicians from Italy, trying to catch some interest of someone in Norway, but that actually never happened. I was not Norwegian, so they will not see the point. I think it was. The Norwegian people, they can be a bit arrogant when it comes to music. There is always, we know what we're doing. We're so cool. You're not. It's a bit of their attitude. Like I said, it was not very easy for me to be part of that. Of course, I should have made a better effort, but for me, it was actually easier to record with musicians that I knew. And the purpose of the first demo of Hideous Divinity was actually to create a band in Norway. But then, things change, new relationship, moving back to Italy, joining our of Penance for like a couple of months and getting kicked out. So at the time, I had basically no other option than doing my thing. That's how Hideous Divinity was born. So
Yeah.
the first lineup actually was created in 2010. So until that time, we were not even a band.
Yeah, because I know y'all formed in 2007. If I'm
Yeah. You all mean being me. The rest of the people was not around. Then of course, when I traveled back to when I moved back to Italy, I really miss playing with other people. Something that I didn't do the time that I was in Norway. That's why I was so happy to join again our Penance. I didn't want to go back into the band to become the boss again. The dynamics inside the band totally changed, but I was okay for that. The only thing that I wanted was to play again with people. I really miss that. I'm still, I'm still happy when it's rehearsal time after so many years. To me, rehearsal time is like the best gym session that you can have. It just leaves you tired and pleased.
Yeah.
Afterwards, it's so I really miss that.
Yeah, but you got to think. Of course, last year was, of course, 15 years of Hideous Divinity as a band itself. Well, now we're at 16 years. So, did you think that you'd be around for now 16 years?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah. At a certain point, I went for acceptance. I accepted the fact that I will keep on doing this music until, I had enough time and, strength in my muscles. I'm terrorized by aging. The concept of getting old really, really scares me. So, sometimes you think it's like Jason Schwartzman in Rushmore, the movie of Wes Anderson. Secret is to find something that you love and do it for the rest of your life. So, yeah, it feels scary that so many years have passed, but I still find meaning in what I do, and I still like it. Apparently, other people are liking that too. So, woohoo.
Yeah, but tell me about like that first demo, Sinful Scar Necrolatry, because I like those early versions of Laughing at the Ephemeral Race and As Flesh God's Spelled Pure Hate. Like I think those early versions are just insane. And so tell me about like that demo. Where was that recorded at?
That was again recorded. I always recorded at 16 Cellar. Mauro Mercurio, at the time drummer of our Penance, was the session drummer, and an old friend of mine. His name is Carlos. He recorded the vocals, and I really wanted to go for something more in the Black Death kind of a flavor. I was heavily influenced by a band like Zyklon. So yeah, I really wanted to try that approach. The result was actually, I still listen to it. It was very good. Again, something that was recorded in one day because I only had, I think it was recorded during Christmas time because I was in Italy for Christmas. And I still like the result. And I mean, songs were great also. I think I always try, once you release music, not to include it in the next in your next record. If it's out, you should make an effort and always put new music. But in the case of Sinful Star Necrolatry, it really was a demo. So I think it looked fair to me at the time to include them in the first full length. Of course, with a different lineup, different arrangements. The sound is different. The sound is much better, simply because we had more time to, at being an album to spend on the sound and the production. But it was cool. I mean, it was it was the beginning of a sound that I still didn't know because I knew that I didn't want to do something that was exactly like Hour of Penance. I always listened to black metal, so I always wanted to bring something new to the table.
Right, and then of course I think you were playing around Italy for a little while. But then how did you get to know like some of the other members like Enrico H and Fabio and everybody else at the time?
I knew Enrico since a very long time because we basically always shared the same group of friends. He was playing in bands too, but he always had a bit different taste. He's a person with, at least at the time, no, it still is. I'm joking. Yeah. With great musical taste. So many things we were sharing, but it was more into that sort of, say, industrial sound. Not my cup of tea, but I think for his taste, he's always been out of that death metal scene. No one actually gave him a serious chance as a singer. And guess what? In the meantime, Enrico studied, became a doctor, and specialized in phoniatry, which is for people like you and me, teaching singers not to get hurt. And if they get hurt, is of course there to cure them. So who better than a person that actually studies how to perform this strange vocal style? Who can be better than him to perform and to, so to me it was an obvious choice. And plus we were both having a lot of resentment towards the previous bands, people that kicked us out, or things that just didn't work out. So I said to Enrico, look, one of the pillars of this band is going to be the resentment against all the people. And he said, I'm in. totally fine with me. Fabio, who's now the guitar player of Flesh Cut Apocalypse, he joined because he was playing in another band with Enrico. It was, you could really tell that the guy he's always been an amazing guitar player, and huge fan of the Faceless and of course Flesh Cut Apocalypse. I think you can really tell that this is someone that joined his favorite band. Of course, all these forces joined for the first lineup of Hideous Divinity.
Yeah, and then of course you got signed to Unique Leader Records, which I think is a pretty good death metal label, which also had a lot of great bands, like I think Abysmal Dawn was on there, and Jested. So what was it about them that made you guys thinking that's the label that to sign with?
The historical value, first of all. I mean, when you would say Unique Leader, you will think about those amazing records that were released at the beginning of the 2000s, from Spawn of Possession to Deeds of Flesh, to you just name it. For me, it was the legendary label. Of course, at that point in 2010, things were already changing. There were things with Unique Leader that didn't work the way they used to. So I think the choice was made because of the history of the label, more than how they're actually working right now. Because some things, they haven't been exactly, not everything went smoothly with Unique Leader, but we'll always be grateful. I mean, Unique Leader was the label that released the first 3 records of Hideous Divinity. So for us, they've been very, very important.
Yeah, and tell me about that first record, Obeisance Rising, which I think is a great debut. In my opinion, one of the best modern debut albums, in my opinion. And I know last year was, of course, 10 years since that. So how do you feel about making the first Hideous Divinity album now, going over a decade later?
The message of that album was very clear. We just had to regain all the lost ground, because something that I never thought it would be possible happened in those years. There was actually something that people started to call, outside of Italy, people started to name it the Italian death metal scene, because to my immense surprise, 2010, there were so many Italian bands that actually made it outside of Italy, and they became famous. There was not only Hour of Penance, Putridity was there, and Septical Gorge. The level of Italian bands became all of a sudden huge, amazing. So for us, the first thing was to find a room in the middle of all this national scene that all of a sudden turned into something extremely competitive. That was the first message. Obeisance Rising is an album where everything has to be fast. The key words were fast, technical, and loud at every cost.
Yeah.
Of course, there were songs. There were, things like the song "Summoning Fist to Heaven," which will later become the slower part of the Hideous Divinity music, which is something that we somehow perfected throughout the years. But the key words were technical, blast beats, brutal, and loud, because we have to be more technical than the others. We just have to, it's like making your room with elbows. We have to find our niche in this very, very competitive scene. So that was the purpose.
Yeah, and I also one thing I noted that the first record was actually a concept album based off of the John Carpenter film They Live. Were you like a fan of that movie?
Well, yeah, the idea of Hideous Divinity Records at the time was every album is going to be a concept, and every concept is going to be about a movie,
right.
Which is still that we are still carrying on. Of course, things are now not so, we're trying to make them a bit more complex, a bit more diversified, because basically now every album of everybody, all the albums are concept albums. So it's not that original anymore. But at the time, They Live, we just, we love the spirit of the movie. Science fiction meets horror. Plus, I've always been, I still am a huge fan of John Carpenter. Maybe They Live is not my favorite movie. I think it will always be Big Trouble in Little China, because, I mean, do I really have to give an explanation for that? It's just the coolest movie ever made.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was the message.
Yeah, right. I bet you with like making concept albums, there has to be a lot of like research that goes along with making these concepts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can just say, okay, the concept is the movie, and you just write random things and just steal the aesthetics of the movie. But what we actually wanted to do was something more, like to tell a story. Like I said, Obeisance Rising was the first attempt. Things will later become more articulated. But yeah, I mean, basically the movie has a story. The concept album also has a story, but a less happier ending. In our concept, the hero dies, but there is no redemption. There is no clear vision what's going to happen in the future. While the movie actually leaves some room to some sort of revolution, right, because of Roddy Piper's sacrifice.
Yeah. And then the next album is Cobra Verde, which is based off of the German film from the same name. Because usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write it, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Cobra Verde, did you feel like pressure to follow up Obeisance Rising?
Well, yeah, but like I said, I think it was the first album when we started thinking about our own style. Every album of Hideous Divinity has been some sort of a mirror of the music that we were listening at the time. I remember, of course, the influences of an album like Cobra Verde being, for example, bands like Defeated Sanity and Warmed, the band from Spain. So there was a different influence behind the music. And I was actually, I like that idea. I like the fact that every album is somehow, it reflects the music that we were liking from that era. That is also the reason why, at least personally, it's my own opinion, All Hideous Divinity albums are so different from each other because the influences are different. And thank goodness, I would say, even if not everybody agrees, your taste changes with time. And when your taste changes and you get tired of some things and you discover some new things, if you're good enough to bring that into your music and you make your music something evolving without completely losing what is your style, because I may be a huge fan of Belzer from Switzerland, but if the next album of Hideous Divinity is going to be a copycat of Belzer, just because I love the band, people are going to hate it. We're going to look really ridiculous because we're just going to give up everything that we do in the name of an imitation of something that I like. No, the things are luckily not that simple. So yeah, I remember Cobra Verde being a time we had a new drummer, we had Giulio joining. Also, we started to develop our own personality, which means we started liking different things. And while with the first band, it was mostly, with the first album, sorry, it was mostly me and a bunch of other musicians that were basically telling which were basically doing what I would tell them. You know, when you spend enough time in a band, you started to have your own personality. You want not only you bring your own ideas, but you're also expecting the other people to listen to them. For me, that was a bit of a change, but yeah, of course, it's how the band, you know, we started to have our own personality, and music was just was going on with that. There were more debates, more discussions about the style and the arrangements and everything. Of course, I will always write the music, but also the way I was presenting music to the other people was different. Because first it was like, here it is, learn it. Then things will become, okay, I've got this, and this other idea. If we change the structure, I still have the same reaction right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? The song is perfect. How dare you? But then you'll find out that it was actually, it's better to receive this inputs. So teamwork, I suppose. I still don't like it though.
Yeah, but Cobra Verde, I think, is a great album. Like, I feel like almost every song has a bit of diversity. Like the opener, "In My Land, I Was a Snake," which is of course the longest on here. It has really great riffs, but then going with the title track, which has that clean guitar intro, which is really kind of like a surprise, and then going into Sinister and Demented has some really killer solos. And then there's like the slower songs like Ajinaku, I think is a great like song, but then leading right into the ending with that ripping corpse cover is just really great. I always feel like I guess Hideous Divinity almost has like different like emotions behind like each of the songs.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the title track is still one of my favorite songs. Perhaps the best song that I still think we ever recorded. At least one of the best songs that I wrote. And yes, I'm very happy when people notice or when people agree with me when they see the different moods. There is nothing that I would find more boring than just doing the same song throughout the entire album and then do, you know, this. I stole this great expression from Zach from Alcott. We also he played with us. He was our bass player when we toured with Hypocrisy. Cookie cutters, you know, when you do songs like with a cookie cutter, and all songs they look like. No, that's I think that's also another thing that I really like in that album. The idea that we could do songs that were not exactly cookie cutters. I just want to keep that. And then, of course, we started messing around with covers, which has always been a thing for me. I just love covers. I love doing covers. I love listening to creative covers. I think since the time when I listened to Brutal Truth covering Media Bliss cover sung by The Germs, in their Need to Control album. I think it's the greatest cover song ever made, because it just you take a song and you just don't do the version exactly the way it is. Everybody can do that, but if you're good enough to take that song and you cover it with your own style, that is when you create something worthy.
Yeah,
I believe it's like when you listen to.
yeah, and I know that next year will be the 10-year anniversary.
Which one was the song?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just got
That's all
lost
good.
in my trail of thoughts. The anniversary of?
Yeah, 10 next year will be the 10-year anniversary of Cobra Verde. So pretty much know the answer. Is there a chance we can get a celebration somehow? Maybe do a tour where you play it start to finish?
I would love to. Yeah, I mean, it should be a bit of a headlining tour because the time that it will take. It's a very cruel world outside. I mean, when you play as a supporting act, you have limited time. You have to choose what to do, and there will always be priority for the new album. Yeah, I would like to do maybe a couple of selected dates when we play Cobra Verde from beginning to end, because we basically missed that opportunity with the Basins Rising. Yeah, which was bad. But then again, I think it will be. Why not? It will be interesting, because we just made a remaster. We released the remastered album, which sounds different. That's also another thing. When you do a remaster, it should not sound exactly like it was before. Otherwise, I don't see what the purpose was. So yeah, it's a bit of a more aborted like sound compared to Cobra Verde. Also, Cobra Verde is our loudest record, which is also another thing that I would not do today. Again, back 10 years ago, it was about being that we have to be the loudest. Just okay, let's listen to Evangelion. We have to be louder than that, louder than Evangelion. And this is what Majesty and Decay from Immolation, louder than that. Right now, luckily, it's not the point anymore. You don't have to be louder. You just have to be. You have to be more, I would say, dynamic. Dynamic is different. I love records with dynamics today, because everything sounds plasticky. So the only way is not to sound like everybody else.
Yeah. And then the next album, Adveniens, I like that album. What was that like, going from Cobra Verde to that?
Advenience is, I think it really marks. I always thought that for every band, the third record is what in Latin is called the rederationem. It's like the turning point. Either you hit the target or you don't.
Could be the
And
game changer.
I think we did. I think it's a very good record. Yeah, that's what we thought. Yeah. The record, the sound is something on top of everything else. And I don't know, it seems like everything went the way it was supposed to be, starting with They Just Died, the first song. I remember I was starting also at the time to record demos at a higher quality, because my purpose at the time still is, if the demo sounds great and they're going to love it, then they won't change a thing. So the more satisfied they are with the demo, the less problems I will have afterwards. Like I said, I'm still trying to play that trick. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I remember Ages Die, everybody loved the song. Everybody loved the different parts, the finale of the song, which people still think it's another song. It's actually the same. Yeah. We get that from the videos that we get at the other concerts. They're like it kind of stops at the end of just before the ending, because they think it's a different song. So it was. I'm really fond of that record. I remember also the recording sessions were not that wearing. Yeah, it was a good record. I think it's of course with Simulacrum we perfected some things, but there is, the first two albums, and then there's Advenience and a new course for Hideous Divinity. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I remember hearing that album. It's just from beginning to end, it is just fucking nuts. Going from Ages Die to even Passages, and ending with the sinister cover of Embodiment of Chaos. It's just from beginning to end. It's like the most brutal album, in my opinion, of Hideous Divinity.
Yeah, it was. The double kick is a bit too loud. I would touch that if I could. We should have turned it down a notch. A lot of people actually thought that it say that the drum sound was a bit fake. I think it's because of the kick drum being so loud. But yeah, other than that, we find also this mixture with the guitar sound. It was of course, I always record 4 rhythm guitar tracks, but for that album we actually went for 2 with one sound and 2 with another sound. For 2 we used the Famous Dragon, and with the other 2 we used the Angle Fireball, which is, according to the Nile lesson, is the guitar sound, the guitar head that gives the body of the guitar sound for death metal album. Everything went on top. We thought that with Cobra Verde we achieved the best recording level, and then when we started listening to, because every time you enter into a recording studio, if 2-3 years have passed, also that if it's a good recording studio, they step up with their sound quality. So what you think it was great one album before, and you're like, I just want the same sound, and you listen to the new thing, no, I want this. Forget whatever I said. This is so much better, and that's what happened. And so we were much happier with the production.
Yeah. And tell me, and then the next album, Simulacrum, I like that album, and 2019 was the first time I heard Taste of It and got into you guys, and pretty much the first time I ever saw you guys as well. I think it was before the album came out. You were still in support of the last album. So tell me about like making Simulacrum.
It was very stressful. It was stressful because it was the first album with Century Media, and we all felt the pressure, meaning that everything was an excuse just to rethink things and to spend an extra time even when things were sounding good enough. I just remember it as a lot of stress because of the drum parts, the recording. We started with an idea, then we stepped back, we went to what we had for Advenience. The final result I really like, because I think it's an improvement looking at what we did in Advenience. But then again, Stefano Morabito, the sound guy, he's one of the best ones that I've ever heard, even if I'm listening to other productions, when it comes to recording the drums. But of course, he also has this is a trademark of his own style. He always places the drums very, very in front of everything else. It has a great sound, but it's really louder compared to the others. So sometimes when the music is so fast, you will have the effect that even if it's a human being that plays the drums, the effect is so loud that some listeners are prone to thinking that the sound of the drums is not real, it's fake. So I think we paid a bit on that on Simulacrum. Simulacrum as an original, I would say you can tell the difference between Simulacrum and other records. But some things, again, I will do them in a different way. That's why we tried something so different when we went to record in the middle of the pandemic. We went to record our EP, LB426. Yeah. But Simulacrum was, it made us know, of course, we had a great 2020 planned for the promotion of Simulacrum, which came out at the end of 2019. We just toured the US with Vader and Abysmal Dawn. And it was great. And then we were just ready to hit the road with the Terrorizer in Europe in April. But we came back from the tour, and literally 10 days later, we were in a lockdown. COVID started, and well, you know the rest of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, then of course I know that still talking about the simulacrum. Well, even that, but that year, 2019, was the first time I saw Hideous Divinity. I think you did that tour with Boarded and Cryptopsy. See, I think that
we
was
played
that.
Atlanta. We played Atlanta.
Yeah, I saw you all. It was that tiny bar, the 529 time, which was like in east of Atlanta. So was that like your first time ever playing in the US?
Yeah, that was 2019. It was that was a fantastic tour because it was Aborted, Cryptopsy, Benighted, and us. I mean, can you believe it? It was the Hyper Blast tour. It was our first experience in the US. Renting an RV, going from Chicago to the West Coast, then to the East Coast, then back to Chicago through Canada, with us. I never seen so much snow in my life. So it was great. It was we understood how big things were, what sort of market was the American one, and we met fans that of course knew the band from before, and I was literally overwhelmed with the response. It was a fantastic experience. We understood how important it was to go to the US for us. Until then, the chances of going to the US, you're required to do a visa. The working visa to play in the US, it's very, very expensive, and it only lasts 1 year. So we thought we're gonna forward a lot of money. So we don't want to do this unless it's something that looks serious. Of course, traveling with Aborted and Cryptopsy and Benighted was the best.
Yeah, and I remember, like, of course, Stefano, like, doing double duty. Like, I even thinking about just getting carpal tunnel, even just thinking about doing like 2 sets.
Yeah, well, it was not driving the RV. It was traveling with Aborted. It was it was much harder for me because I was the driver together with Enrico, and then I was playing. Now, of course, Stefano did an amazing job. And I mean, yeah, when you tour with Aborted, when you're part of Aborted, your job doesn't end on stage. Stefano was like everybody in Aborted, was extremely helpful with the merch and the interviews and the meets and greets. He had a lot of work during that tour. It was plus it was just great to see the other bands. Benighted, they were with us like for 3/4 of the tour, then they had to travel back. So basically, I think their last concert was in Birmingham.
Yeah, I would have
Alabama.
actually gone to that.
I don't know if they actually made it to.
No,
because they didn't made it. They didn't make it to Atlanta.
No, they didn't.
Or
I think they had to like
right.
They pretty much stopped after that Birmingham show. Which, not gonna lie, I would have actually gone there to see that, because I've actually have interviewed Julian before, and he's a cool guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. Super great guy.
Yeah, but then kind of like going into that your EP that you put out in 2021, LV426, I think it's a really great EP. It's only like 3 songs, but like going from Akron, Stream of Woe to Chest Burst to even that Coheed and Cambria cover, which I thought was kind of interesting. I just think it's just a great EP. And what made you guys decide to cover a Coheed and Cambria song? Because it's just interesting, a death metal band covering a prog rock metal band.
Right. Well, believe it or not, the reason was that I couldn't find bands that made a song about Alien. And I'm talking about Ridley Scott's or James Cameron, you name it. Just that Alien, not any aliens in general. Otherwise, we will have covered the Megadeth song. But what I'm saying is, I just couldn't find it until I didn't know Coheed and Cambria. Then I'm listening to the song and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be difficult to cover. But then I thought, okay, let's try another experiment, because this is going to be an EP. So if we can allow ourselves to make any experiments at all, it's going to be on an EP. It's safer. So I thought, let's take this song and let's play it in a way like a band like Ulcerate would do. So the cool thing with covers sometimes is that you take a song, you bring it to another band style, and then you make it your own.
Yeah, exactly. Make it like your own.
For example, the Embodiment of Chaos cover of Sinister that appears on Advenience, I had aborted, that just released Necrotic Manifesto, still my favorite record. I had their sound in my mind when I took a song from Sinister. So the process was Sinister, aborted, Hideous, Divinity. With Delirium Tremens, it was Coid and Cambria, Ulcerate, Hideous, Divinity. It may sound pretentious, but it's actually a lot of fun. Also because a lot of people, they didn't understand it was a Coid and Cambria cover, and they were like, "Well, what happened to you? Like you slowing down things, you're getting soft." No, it's actually a cover, but it was funny because not everybody got it. We thought that we would attract a lot of critics from the Coid and Cambria fans, but people found that interesting. I think they understood. They understood. So I'm really glad of how things turn out.
Yeah. Let's see Coid and Cambria cover a Hideous Divinity song.
No, I mean, they seem nice people. I would never have them doing anything like that. But it was cool. I mean, it was even cool to perform that live. And we thought, oh, but this is so comfortable. Then we understood that is why Behemoth are doing what they're doing. They're basically working on their own pension plan. So you can basically play that music until you're, I don't know, 75 or something, and it will still make sense. I think it's so clever. But we're talking about one of the most clever bands ever when it comes to Behemoth. What they're doing is, they're tracing a parable of they're changing their style in a way. It's still them, but of course they simply don't need to play songs that are just furious blast beats like 300 BPM throughout the entire song. They're just they're just cashing it.
Yeah. And then I've kind of like breaking off of Hideous Divinity, because last year you started up a new band called Patristiak. So because I think it's you and Jacopo Pepe. Hey, so how did you get to know Jacopo? And I know you put out the Apologetica EP. Tell me about like making of that band.
Yeah, I knew Jacopo because he plays in this band called Betsor. He does what they do is really special music, more towards perhaps prog rock than anything. But the purpose of my side project was to involve different people, from the musicians to the production. Jacopo is not in the band anymore because he simply doesn't have time. He's working as a sound engineer, and he has his hands already full with Betsor. Betsor are a very demanding band for sure. Yeah, not much that I actually want to say about Patristic right now, because I swore that I will never mix the two things, especially in an interview, either Divinity and Patristic. But if you listen to the music, you can understand what I'm trying to do. Something a bit different, like I said, with different people. I'm working on something new, but it's still on an embryo thing, and it's a manifesto of love of that other branch of music that is really a big part in my life, and that is perhaps more towards black metal. But yeah.
Yeah, but then kind of going back in the Hideous Divinity, because I know back in March you dropped a new song, Mysterium Tremendum, which I've heard it and I fucking love it. Is that sort of like what we're gonna expect for the next Hideous Divinity album, or is that just kind of like a one-off kind of thing?
No, that's part of the new spirit. It was certainly a song that was kind of, it chose itself to become a single because I think it's one of the shortest songs, more direct songs we ever wrote. We just like the way it sounded. We like the idea of bringing it first to a live audience when we played 70K Tons of Metal, and we that was even before we released it as a single. It was actually released on the first day of the tour we had with Belphegor and Kamfar in Europe. We just wanted to try out this more direct approach, see if people would get it again. It's always good when you're trusting your listeners with something, and the response is the positive response that you were expecting. Um, I also like the sound because we are again trying to do something different. Every time I say different, people may listen to things and it's like, "Are you serious? This all sounds the same to me." It's my own perspective, when you spend so much time like looking at an object or listening to something, you see things a lot of people don't, especially in the era of internet and Spotify, where, I don't know, after a couple of songs you skip to the after a couple of seconds you skip to the next song. So I don't know, I'm happy of the result. The song is going to be part of the album that we are working on right now. We're gonna enter studio to record the album this summertime. Again, something that I really didn't want to do. I wanted to do it earlier because there's nothing worse than record anything in Rome during summertime. Nothing comparable to Georgia, but it gets pretty hot and humid in here too, and it really makes recording sessions miserable. But yeah, I guess
Yeah,
I
because
guess
I
you'll
know.
have to be.
Yeah, because here in Georgia, it's hot as fuck. I know it gets up to like the 90s or something, which is ridiculous. Well, right now it's like at 87.
I know.
But I know the other day it was kicking up to like almost in the hundreds, which is
Ouch.
nuts. No, it's like
My
it's like a
goodness.
literal hellfire.
And with what? 99% humidity rate or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. If I even
Even though
like,
the worst, I think it was.
yeah. Yeah, because if I even step out of my house for like a second, I'm literally like sweating, or I feel like I'm about to burst into flames.
Yeah, and you people really really love your air conditioning, right?
Yeah, yeah. My
I think the
my
poor
bedroom's
Zach who
perfect.
traveled with us, you know,
Yeah, I even have like a fan blowing up in there.
we didn't use much air conditioning while traveling with the RV. I think poor Zach, and he's from Newberry, South Carolina, so he really knows what hot weather is, and the fact that we didn't use when we toured with Hypocrisy, and we were in the South, and it was end of May, which is not as bad as now, but it was really already pretty gnarly, especially when you're going from Mesa, Arizona to Louisiana. My goodness, that was so warm. And poor Zach was like, "Don't you guys use air conditioning?" "No, we're trying not to." He must have thought, "Oh God, I made a mistake."
Yeah.
But then things work out. The best thing of that tour was getting to know Yoav. Yoav, that plays bass with Atheist. He was with us the first leg, east to west leg of the tour with Hypocrisy, and then Zach was with us from LA to Pittsburgh for the southern leg of the tour. And the best thing of that tour was getting to know these two guys. They were just amazing. We made two amazing friends. I'm so looking forward to see Zach again. He's coming with his band named Allcoth. If you haven't heard of them, go and check them out. Like right now, they just released the first album, and they're amazing. They're amazing. They're coming to Europe for a small tour So we're gonna meet again in Italy, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Great guy, great musician.
Awesome. And sort of like the final question I wanted to ask is, I want to talk about gear, like what kind of like guitars that you play, like play like strings, amplifiers, pedals, all that good stuff.
I can actually show you in it.
Well, you have like your guitar next to you.
1 second. Yeah, I'm surrounded by guitars. Let's flip this thing. Now it should be. How do I turn this? I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a mover when it comes to this. So this is the guitar that I basically used for like forever.
Wow.
Which was this Epiphone Corina 7-string guitar. Yeah, you can tell it's really a working class guitar. And I used it like from the first record to the last one. But this is my live guitar. All albums were recorded with this, which is a Dean Flying V Time capsule. And you can see that all the pickups that I'm using are from this guy, Z guitars. Yeah, also, oh boy, talking about something really worn out. So yeah, basically all the guitars that I record ever are going to be, I've always been made with this guitar. I'm also, how do you say it? I'm a huge fan of this Epiphone guitars that came out in the early 2000s, made of Corina, just a couple of models. As you can see, they're all 7-string. And again, sad magnets. But I got the best present ever from the creator of Z pickups. That is this magnificent model of custom guitar, 7-string. I made a playthrough video of Mysterium Tremendum with this guitar. And this guitar was with me for the first time, the tour we did with Balthagor and Comfort in Europe. I brought this amazing, merciless axe with me. This is another story, Balthagor only. Balthagor claiming the showers every evening when we were touring, but that's another story about Balthagor. Just don't even get me started on them, please. It's better not.
Awesome. So before we go, just want to thank you for taking your time, Enrico. Thank you for this conversation. Is there just anything else with the Hideous Divinity you'd like to plug in terms of like tours and stuff?
We'll have a couple of festivals, but only in Europe this year. Next year is going to see the new record. So we will definitely see each other again in the US. Every time we schedule something for the US, like I said, it involves this infamous working visa, which basically pushes us to tour the US more than once over 12 months. We decided to wait to tour again the US until we had a new record. I'm a very, very slow writer. We are all a bit slow when it comes to new releases. We like to take our time. So now we're just focusing on that. It's going to be a summertime and an autumn time for the record. We're going to play at a huge festival in Rome. We're going to be at Metal Days in Slovenia. And we'll have just a couple of scatter dates until the end of the year. Not that much. Last year was actually much, much better. And it was not supposed to be. But what happened last year? It was the first year of festivals after, say, the end of not the pandemic, but the end of the lockdowns. So there was no room for us. But a lot of, and talking about European festivals, but a lot of American bands, they were not allowed, they could not afford to tour because of how crazy it was with, with gasoline price and with costs in general. So they had to cancel the tour. So they will also cancel their performances at festivals. And that's why we got called, many of them, basically to replace them. So we played first time Brutal Assault last year, replacing an American band, and it was was an amazing festival. We had a blast. So yeah, this year, couple of those, and then hopefully 2024 is going to be the year when you're going to see us on the road again, like seriously, especially in the US. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. So everybody, Enrico from Hideous Divinity. We'll see you next time.